All right, welcome back to the Infinite Gold Podcast. You've got Bree, myself, and the amazing Kane. Right now, he's a busy man. He's driving all over the place, but we had to snag him for this podcast episode. So you're going to see him. If you're watching the visual, you're going to see him in his car because he was graciously enough to give us some of his time. So, Kane, thanks for being here. I appreciate it, buddy.
Yes,
Yes,
thank you,
sir.
Kane.
So, Kane, we got born in sunny California, San Diego to be exact, moved out to the LA area when he was young. He dropped out of high school. So, yes, we're talking to a high school dropout who made something of himself. He left with his brother, took his brother in, and they had the nickname of the Sunset Kids because when they were younger, they just hustled. They obviously knew that, well, school wasn't in the picture for them. So you gotta work your tail off out there, especially during that time. So they worked hard. He came up through the ranks. He started off, parking cars, cleaning bathrooms, doing all the dirty work that nobody wants to do, but it has to get done. And you learn a lot from doing the dirty work. From there, he became a bouncer at multiple venues. He's going to go into detail on some of those venues, but you'll know of them when you hear him. From there, he became the guy that people looked up to. They're like, "Oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's doing." And so people started reaching out to him like, "Hey, do you do stuff on the side from this bouncing gig?" And then he really got known for what he does is when Diane Ross reached out to him. You've got that. Then Dan Bilzerian reached out to him. I know everybody's going to know who that is. You had Stan Lee. From there, he's traveled all over the country doing what he does best, and he does security for some top A-listers. Obviously, we're not going to be able to go into all of them. Would be nice, but unfortunately, we can't. And then from there, he's realized he's like, wow, I kind of know what I'm doing and talking about. Everyone keeps reaching out to me. So he started his security consulting company. So if there's anybody listening who is thinking about doing that, Kane's the man to reach out to. From there, he's now the COO of multiple companies. And again, all started from pretty much nothing. So, Kane, we appreciate you being on and we love you, brother.
I love you too, guys.
Awesome. So let's start. Let's start from square one. So you're 17 years old, you're in high school, and you're like, this isn't working out. This isn't for me. And hey, brother, let's get out of here. What possessed you to do that?
Long story short, I mean, there's a lot of long stories, but I'll
Yeah.
make them as short as possible. I know we're on a crunch time. Um, I was going to a school in Venice, a continuation portion of Venice High School, and we were like the kids that all sorts of all over LA. They ended up at this particular school, and we only had to go twice a week. So the first day was to get your work, do some work, and then they would even let us smoke outside as long as we showed up, so we could smoke cigarettes
Dang.
outside, And one day, someone came in tripping and went inside and checked a lot of people. All these guys are tough guys, I thought, and he came up to me and yeah, the handicap ramps that go up to like the temporary buildings that get put in a lot of schools. I was
Like the
posted up
bungalows?
over there.
Yep.
Yeah, I was smoking a cigarette, and this guy walks up past me because he didn't pay no mind to me. Walked in, checked these guys on the inside, and then comes out and tries to check me, and then we just squared up, and
Yep.
and then he pulled out this long, skinny screwdriver. He tried to hit me. I ducked. I bobbed. I went in for a double leg. He pulls out this long, skinny screwdriver, and it was like Matrix slow motion. I was like, "Whoa!" And I was like,
Yep.
"Shit," But I couldn't run though, because like I was backed in my corner, so
Yeah.
there was nowhere for me to
Mm-hmm.
go anyway. And because I didn't run, now he's looking at me like, "Oh shit, this guy's not scared of me." Truth is, I was scared to death. You know what I mean? I just couldn't run. And then he
Yep.
takes off. I'll be back. I'll be back. And then he took off. And then I get a call. Well, not I got a call. My mom got a call, and the school said, "Hey, um, he's not allowed to come back." Now our area is getting threatened with retaliation and all this. So like, it was a big reality check for me, with that. And then now I'm dropped out. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to school. My mom and I didn't have the best situation, and so I just decided that I was going to look for a job.
Okay.
And so I got lucky and got a job in a parking lot uh, right outside of a building that Johnny Depp just bought a club in. I didn't know any of this, obviously.
Yeah.
And I started parking cars. And then Johnny Depp bought this spot, and then all of a sudden this became like the place where the coolest of the cool people. It was a small club, so only the
Yeah.
coolest of the coolest could go in at that time. There was no bottle service back then, but my brother, now you can buy your way in. If you got money, you could be cool, but
Oh
like it was
yeah.
different back then. There was no bribing your way in those days. My brother wanted me to take him in. So he
Mm.
was 15, and I'd already worked enough, and I was saved up and had a spot with a roommate. And I was like, all right, you can come, And he's like, I don't want to go to school either. So, all right, you got to work. So
Mm-hmm.
we put him to work cleaning the Viper room and helping me park cars. But the kid was so brilliant. By like 16 and a half, he created his own cleaning company, licensed, bonded,
Nice.
insured,
Awesome.
Shine Time Cleaners. And he's like, I need a slogan. I was like, I'll come up with the slogan. I came with the slogan. We clean the corners the others cut. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and
Mm.
then he crushed it. He crushed it. He made so much money as a kid and ran it for I don't know how many years, a lot though. But
That's
that's how we
awesome.
got into the game together, and started our journey together. And then we hustled, we busted our ass, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
like we scrubbed toilets, clean floors, washed dishes, like there was nothing that we didn't say no to. And then in those days, um, I would get invited to A-list clubs and get put on the list under under like an alias, no ID required, and I would go with one of my OGs, and I'd go up to the list man, and he'd be like, oh, get out of here, because I was a kid, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I was like barely 18, maybe 18, like 18 and a half, maybe. And
That's
I'm
funny.
like, no, 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 I'm on the list, dog. I'm on the list, And then he's like, no. I'm like, no, look, it's under plus one even, And
Mm.
like, and then it says also it should say no ID required. You know what I mean? And you're like,
Yep.
ah, fuck, get in there.
Ah.
And I
That's
did
funny.
that. I did that for a little while, and at that time I was around all the coolest celebrities, all the coolest models, all the coolest, heiress or heirs to this family and that family, and rock stars, like real rock stars. Like back then, there was a lot of rock stars, lots
Yeah.
lots of stuff. And I remember I was in there, and I was like, one time it just something hit me, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, dude, why am I in here? I was like, I'm not cool. I'm like, that guy's cool over there. You got so and so over there. I'm like, why am I here? And I was having this whole conversation with them myself, and I was like, and it hit me. I'm not cool. I'm here because of how hard I've worked. I'm here because I did all the jobs that nobody wanted to do, and I earned the respect of everybody that ran Hollywood at that time. And rest in peace to a lot of those people. But like, and then I literally I stood up, walked out, and I never went out again like that. And
Mm.
then I just continued to grind even more. And then forward a little bit, Johnny Depp had started this night called Metal Shop, which turned into Metal School, which turned into Steel Panther. And when it first started off as Metal Shop, my brother and we would set everything up for it. That was one of our jobs, all this stuff. And back then, Ozzy Osbourne was shooting his reality TV show with his home and his family and everything up the street
Yeah.
from us. And he was next door shopping at this little coffee shop, tricket shop, whatever. And we heard that he was over there. So he's like, oh, you got to go over there and ask him if he would come and announce what we're doing tonight. That would be so cool. So I run over there, and he's gone. He's already walking up Sunset Boulevard towards what we call the 9,000 building, right across the street from the Roxy. But he hadn't crossed the street yet. It's Clark Street. And he's at the stoplight waiting for a signal to walk. And I make it to him, and I said, "Hey, sir, I work for Johnny Depp over at the Viper Room. We just started this night. It's an '80s night. Everybody thinks it would be so cool if you could, come participate and announce this new cover band that we're doing and stuff." And he's like, you know, Sharon likes to go out. And he paused for a second, and I'm looking at him like, and he goes, I get paid to go out. And like, but if you could see it, like I'm obviously sitting down. If I was standing up, I would show you. He has like
Yeah.
this shuffle walk, you know what I mean? And then like the light turned green, he turned away from me, didn't say goodbye, and literally shuffled across the street. You know what I mean? And I was like, And I was like, how cool was that? You know what I mean? Like, wow. And then
Yeah.
in my head, that was another epiphany. I'm like, I'm never gonna go out unless I get paid now. You know what I mean?
I like that.
I love
And
it.
that changed my perception of a lot right there too. I mean, like there were so many signs, but that's
I love it.
That's cool. The
So,
impersonation, that was too good.
it.
The voice change. I love that. Oh my
yeah.
god.
Yeah. It was real though. It's real. I was like, shit.
So you kind of touched on it, the epiphanies that you had. How did working those jobs that nobody wanted to do, how did that change your mental grasp on life in general and just who you became today?
Life was hard,
Hmm.
for me and my brother. We went through a lot, and one of my favorite jobs ever was cleaning nightclubs,
Hmm.
because I would start off with create all the thrash stuff all over the floor, on the tables, nobody in there, like, and so you had to get all the stuff off the tables, out of the booze, put it on the floor, and like, you know, dump all trash cans came were first, dump all the trash cans. But I used to love the stages of it
Hmm.
because the first step was sweeping. So then I became mindful of, oh, my sweeping. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I would get to visually see uh, what I did, as small as that was. They were little wins,
Oof.
and
We talked
so
about that.
like
Yeah.
I'd sweep everything up first, and now I was like, wow, look at this spot, and now it's like the floor's all dirty, all the stuff that's spilled,
Ah.
glass that was broken that's glued into the alcohol that sat there with the mixed drink and stuff, and like,
Yeah.
and then the next step was mopping,
Hmm.
and that was another win because I got to be mindful. Okay, I can do how many ways like this? I got to flip it, then like that, you know what I mean? And then how many times can I use one bucket, per section before
Wow.
I'm spreading dirt all over the rest of the floor?
Yeah.
Like there was so much that went into it, just the cleaning. And then after you did that, then you had to do a final mop, and that was side to side with less buckets to go through,
yeah.
switch on one side, and then the last step was waxing it. And waxing it, you had to be very methodical and slow and precise and everything. And then all of a sudden now it pops. And the Viper room back in those days was all black with these little green diamonds in between,
Mm.
like, I don't know, maybe there'd be like eight squares and it'd be one little green diamond in it, and then back in those days there was all the diamonds were the same way,
Yeah.
except for one diamond was off like a square, and
Hmm.
then that's where Johnny Depp signed his signature underneath there, but
That's cool.
I really
Wow.
enjoyed cleaning a lot. Cleaning was fun, and the bathrooms were hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially the women's bathroom. You know what I mean? Like that was, you know what I mean?
Women are
But
savages. I'll be the
yeah,
first to tell you.
so savage. I mean, like,
So
don't let the
savage.
toilet be clogged. It doesn't stop.
Mm,
Doesn't stop. And you like gotta.
mm.
Oh my God. Like, but I, like it. That gave me a lot of self confidence. As crazy
Hmm.
as that sounds, and I enjoyed it. And because I enjoyed it, people would look at me like, wow, he ain't tripping. He ain't over there
Hmm.
frustrated. I'm over there, like there was no cell phone to distract you and no headphones to listen to music with unless you had some Walkman, and this is a long time, I'm
Uh-huh.
49 years old. You know what I mean? Like, so you really had to be Zen. And I didn't even know what Zen was then, but I was on the journey of becoming something better than where I came from because I had
yeah.
to create a lot of different versions of myself. And that was the beginning of me shedding everything that I thought I was that was holding me back, that there was no future and I would have been dead or locked up if I stayed in
Hmm.
that mindset. So,
Yeah.
so
Wow.
I
That's
don't know
great
what
to
else to say.
No, that's great because like you really fully took in those jobs and embraced that those were the foundation of what, essentially built you up to where you are and what's gotten you to today. And those
Yeah.
that's important. A lot of people like to discredit some of their like parts of their journey when it's the foundational stuff because they're like, no, it's no big deal, when really it's a huge deal. You
I
can't
love
make
it.
it without a solid foundation.
Right. And God put me in a place to where I had to clean foundations, you know, and I did a lot of work on myself while I was doing it. And I also understood the power that was behind cleaning,
Hmm.
because of anything. As you're cleaning exterior, you're cleaning interior.
Mm-hmm.
So good. Also, that grit and grind that you had then is what led basically to everything after that. I mean, let's be honest, like if you weren't so dedicated to your craft, dedicated to your mental stability and, working so hard, you probably never would have became the bouncer that you became, which never would have gotten the bodyguard stuff, which never would have gotten the security consulting. So it's like Brees mentioned, that foundation was huge. And if you don't mind, how did that now translate into becoming that bouncer, moving up to that next step in the journey of Kane?
Well, parking cars in those days off the Sunset Strip was a lot, because you
Mm-hmm.
figured you have people from all over the country, all over the city, tough neighborhoods, and a lot of tough humans would
Oh, I
go to these
bet.
crazy shows at the
Mm-hmm.
Whiskey, the Roxy, go hang at the Rainbow, and all these other clubs, and they all had to park. Some
Yep.
of them would come in drunk and they would leave more drunk. And I was always, I'm a little dude, 5'8". I was 100 and
Hey,
shit. Back then I was probably 167 pounds. You know what I
hey,
mean?
you and I, brother. I think I was 5'7" and 145 pounds when I was trying to play ice hockey, man. It was small.
That's on a whole nother level right there. I mean, you
Yeah.
guys are gritting and grinding with that.
It's a good time.
Yeah. But there was a lot of violence,
Hmm.
a lot of violence, and a lot. I saw Sunset Boulevard get shut down a gang of times. My parking lot would turn into a fight fest with sometimes, 50, 60, 70, 80, 150 people, like just, wow, just getting down. You don't even know what to do. Back then I didn't know what to do.
I
You
was
know
gonna
what I
say
mean? Now,
now
now,
you would.
now I know what to do. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I got a lot of stories with that, because I
Yeah.
got to do that. I got to also witness that on the other level of it, where I actually had the ability to understand what's going on and
Yeah.
then execute on what needed. But that's a whole nother story. But with this one, I had developed a reputation on the Sunset Strip. Um, I developed a reputation that I was good at defending myself and protecting myself and protecting the people that were around me. Because something you're not scared, you just handle it. And
Correct. Yep.
I had a lot of opportunities to handle it, and I did. And Johnny Depp's head of security was Big Ed Shaw, my mentor to this day, my best friend. My God, he's been a cornerstone in my life for like 34, 35 years. I
That's
wouldn't be
awesome.
who I am without him, even to today.
Hmm.
But he had come up to me and he was like, we all know you can fight. You know, we all know you can use your hands. And he's like, but I'm going to show you how to use your head.
Yes.
And that's exactly what he did. I mean, he gave me so much game and knowledge and allowed me to experience it and tested me and put me in so many tough situations to see
Hmm.
how I would handle myself, and then would pull me to the side and ask me how I thought I did and go over the things that I could have done better. And then he put me at the sunset door, and that was the door that all the celebrities came in through the sunset side. Most of the GP, well, the cool GP, but and then not the A-list celebrities were going through the front door unless they wanted to be seen. Back then there was only one main paparazzi. I think he had three guys. Woody was the OG back then. He is the OG of all paparazzis. Rest in peace, Woody. But like, um, I wouldn't. Big Ed gave me my shot, so I
Hmm.
ran that back door, and got to meet so many He saw so many cool shows, and I had
I
no
bet.
idea of the rock and roll royalty that I was around. I had no idea. I was a
Hmm.
kid listening to gangbang music and thinking I was a gangster and all this tough shit. You know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
here I am. There's Johnny Cash performing right there on the stage.
That's
That's
so cool.
incredible.
And like looking back at that, I'm like, and Tom Petty. I mean, I can go
That
on
would
and
be
on.
so fun.
Nicole,
Wow.
Yeah.
yeah, they had this group called, well, not group, band called Neurotic Boy Outsiders, which was Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols, John Taylor from Duran Duran, Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers, and
That's back when
like,
music was good.
Yeah.
yeah, it was different, but they used to have crazy mashups like that all the time of different guys. They would be there. Adam from Counting Crows was always there. There's so many people that were just there. You jump behind the bar, pour a drink. Christina Applegate behind the bar pouring drinks. I mean, like so many people. It's so crazy to think how young I was and not even know what I was around. You know. But I appreciated being around it, not even knowing what I was around. But
That
Big
is
Ed
cool.
Shaw gave me my first shot. I'll never forget that. You know.
That's awesome.
So I love that. Again, it's funny that I have a feeling that a lot of this is going to tie to mental acuity and mental strength and grit. And then from there, you're this bouncer. And we talked prior to this call, but what was that number of how many people? And again, you're going to top probably anybody who listens to this. How many people you think you've patted down in your lifetime so far?
A minimum of a 500,000 people, and
That's
that's low ball. Like I ain't one of those
insane.
guys that's like, oh, 500,000 and it's like probably down here. No, it's probably
Yeah.
more than that because if you do
Yeah.
in and
Oh,
outs, and all
yeah.
this other shit. But I would realistically say 500,000 people. I found everything you could ever imagine. I mean, you find a gangster coming in, you get a lot of. We ran a lot of clubs with like real gangsters coming in.
Yeah.
Dudes coming in, they killed somebody. You know what I mean? They
Mm
just ain't. They got real body counts, not what these kids call body counts. But
hmm.
like,
Yeah.
but you get these guys turn around back to me, come down, like, oh, Doc, what are you doing? Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, bro, in the ear, no one can hear me talking to him. I'm like, hey, you gotta go put that shit back in your car. Go put that shit back in your car. Come back up. I'll pat you down and I'll get you in. Oh, you ain't even tripping. No, I ain't tripping. I'm not here to trip, dog. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Now I got an ally with the gun. He ain't
Yep.
gonna do nothing to any of us. And a
Nope.
matter of fact, if I tell this to cool out, he's cool.
He is because
So
you already had his back.
yeah, you got to be a diplomat. I learned to be a diplomat.
Ooh. So I love that, and that was gonna be my follow up question is because a lot of people know I'm a first responder in law enforcement. One of the things that we practice regularly is verbal judo. That's what we call it. How much of that did you learn just from that back door, especially with the story you just provided? Like how
People
important
skills.
the people skills, how important is that even in your day to day stuff today?
Yeah, well, I mean, just in the bounce. See, there's bouncers, but then at a certain point, you got to evolve to be a cooler.
Ooh.
So that's the level of it. So eventually that and the mental judo that you're speaking of is bouncer can't do that.
Mm,
Bouncer's there to
true.
regulate and bounce people out,
Yeah.
so but a cooler, well, cooler cool shit out.
Mm,
So I got really good at this, so when people couldn't figure shit out, when people were going too hard and tough and
mm-hmm.
chest out too much to drink, on whatever drug they're on and ready to take on the world, I would get called, hey, get Kane over here,
Yep.
and then so I would be up
Uso.
there and yeah, right. And you got 300 people in line still trying to get in,
Yep.
this dude posturing up. And, I learned to approach these situations with grace
Oof.
because you don't know what other people are journeying in their own self,
Yeah.
what happens in the exterior, these other contributing
Mhm.
factors that
Mm,
are contributing to the things that they're doing. Maybe someone that they love that's close, someone just passed away. Maybe
oof.
they just lost their house.
Yeah.
Maybe their lady just left them. Maybe this, there was so many, maybe they lost their job, and like without like consciously thinking about that, this becomes part of how you react to it. You know
Mm,
what I mean? So I would run into these situations and I would gauge what's going on and be like, hey, how you doing, dog? Oh, you, what you want? Like, hey, check it out. I'm just gonna talk to you. I ain't trying to talk to anyone else. And I always would be calm.
mm-hmm.
Naturally, I'm very calm in my life. I'm a rock that makes the rapids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I ain't trying to make no rapids. You know what I mean? So, I would go up to these humans and I'd be like, hey, check it out. I'm gonna talk to you. You know, what are you talking about, dog? I'm gonna fume up. I'm gonna fuel up. I'm gonna do this. I'm like, hey, no one's talking like that right now, bro.
Yeah.
I want to go back in there, dude, whatever it was, like,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, hey, check it out. You're not gonna come back in tonight. What? Like, no, I'm serious. Like, you're not coming back in tonight, but I'm gonna give you a few options here, and only he can hear me.
Yeah.
I'm not talking, because you get these guys, they use the person they're talking to
They're
as a
just,
microphone.
yeah.
You know
Mm.
what I mean? So like, and there is times that you need to do that, but you got to differentiate. If I'm talking to you, but I really want to talk to the 70 people around me or the 15 people that can hear me, well, then
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to speak up to you so they can hear me. I'm going to use you as an example, but in a lot of cases, it's not the case. But you
Yeah.
got to be able to differentiate when to connect. And that's always the first goal is to connect. And I get these guys and, I'd be like, all right, check it out, bro. If you leave right now, you're going to be able to walk away with your pride, your dignity, and I'll invite you back. You come back, I'll take
Yeah.
care of you and your boy, take care of you and your girl. I'll make you look good. But you just got to walk away on your own. And sometimes they would do that.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they would. And then they come back and apologize and thank me, and all of a sudden there could be some sort of diplomatic
Yeah.
situation to help them in their life. I listen to them. 'Cause a lot of time I want to listen to people,
Yeah.
but sometimes it doesn't go that way. You know what I mean? And then they're like,
Yep.
"Oh,
It's the other
dog,
side of the
I'm gonna,
coin.
and now they're yelling at me, and I'm like, look, bro, I'm gonna tell you straight up, like you probably a tough guy in your life. Yeah, I'm a tough guy. And you're like, good, all right, good. I'm not a tough guy. Okay, you could probably tell me how many people you put you knocked out, put to sleep, whatever, right? Oh yeah, da, da, da. I'm like, okay, well, I don't have a number for that. You know what I mean? You know, but what I can tell you is I don't want you to be number three, you know? And they're like, what do you mean number three? What is that? I'm like, bro, I ain't gonna lie to you. You're a big dude. You're strong.
Yeah.
I'm a little scared of you. You know what I mean? And the last two dudes that I was scared of, they're bigger than me. They were stronger than me. Let's just say when I put them to sleep, I went too hard, too long, and then I had to revive these dudes and bring them back to life. And I don't want to experience that for the third time because I get scared to death. I'm thinking I killed this guy. Now, hey, telling my security to call 911. We got to get in, something here. I'm thinking all these things now, praying, God, please don't let this guy die. Like, I don't want that. I don't want you to be number three, bro. And I'm not even kidding, you know? And, and cause I'm going to tell you, I'm going to put you to sleep. And your best case scenario is that I'm putting you to sleep and I'm going to drag you somewhere the fuck else where we're not even here right now. You're going to wake up disoriented and confused, wondering what's happening, where you woke up at, why you're in the parking lot now, leaned up against this building in the alleyway. You're going to be like, whoa, but I'll have a bottle of water for you. I'll be sitting right next to you. And then we can talk about what happened. So, I mean, like it can go a lot of ways.
That's so
And then,
funny.
then sometimes on that point, they're like looking at me like, is he serious? I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm
Oh
actually
yeah.
serious. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, and sometimes they're like, all right, I'm tripping, and then they go, and then
Yeah.
sometimes they don't, and then they throw a punch, a duck under, and next thing you know, they're asleep, and I'm dragging them to the alley, giving them a bottle of water.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, you didn't lie to him.
No,
You
I
wa-
didn't lie.
you
Yeah.
warned
I
him.
mean, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
A gentle warning.
Yeah,
I
I
gave
was saying,
yeah,
you gave him a
gave him
gentle
options.
warning.
He didn't end up being number three, that particular guy, so.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I feel like you just have a way of communicating with people to, especially with that profession, how to de-escalate situations. And I could just tell, because you talk about this low voice when you're whispering to the guy in their ear, like you literally hear nothing. It's like a magical, like, it just like gets the point across where like, okay, this guy's serious. I better listen to him. Or they take the hard route and then you gotta put him to sleep
Yeah.
and take him to an alley. That's fun.
There
Uh,
is compassion. I have the bottle of
that's
water.
what I was saying. You were thinking about him. You're thinking about that
At the end of
person.
the day, I love people. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like we're all humans.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I finally come to my own self-realization that I'm human and it's okay to make mistakes. This is another epiphany.
Hmm.
So
Love it. And then from there, obviously, you made yourself known of being able to handle business when you need to, but also just communicating with people. I mean, during that time, there's probably more people getting into fights than not getting into fights. And you are probably on the opposite side. You probably got into less fights because of the way you spoke to people, the way you had empathy for them. You talked the way you talk. And that's where some high level people started calling you saying, hey, looks like you know what you're doing. And it sounds like Diana Ross was the biggest person that gave you that next step after that. Uh, Tell us about that and kind of how that led you down the path to um, what's wrapped around your neck.
Yeah. Well, somebody I ran an A-list club for, Michael Sutton, good guy. He's really close to the Ross family. And
Hmm.
he reached out to me and said, hey, I have something. Miss Ross's son, Evan, is going to be doing a movie in Detroit, and they're looking for someone that can be able to take care of him for the next 5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And if this person does a good job, it could pan out to bigger things. And so I said, done, and I'd never been to Detroit, at that time. I had no idea what I was really getting into. And at that time, I couldn't even carry concealed, I went with all my suits that I had, my ducks lined up, and I had a flashlight,
Wow.
so my flashlight was it. But I learned that flashlight, out of traveling as a bodyguard, as many times as I've been armed in a lot of different situations, and had pepper spray and flashlight, you always need a flashlight for so many things.
It's
That's
true.
like the one tool that I think I've used time and time again. But
Mm-hmm.
they flew me out there. I went out there and I had a really good experience. I learned so much, and this was before smartphones, really. You know what I mean? Like, there
Yeah.
was no like, there was no like, maps and all this shit. Verizon was playing with this thing where you could pay like, I don't even know, $10 a month to like have like
I remember that.
like this thing but like, so I got a notepad, a pen, sitting shotgun. Okay, looking, okay, there's a hotel. This hotel right here. There's a McDonald's across the street right there on this street. And I literally was making maps as we were going from one spot to another spot to
Yeah.
another spot to another spot, and until I familiarized myself with everything. And what they didn't know, when I would go back to the hotel, I'd be up for an hour, like going over everything and figuring back, because now I knew where we were going to be, and like looking up
Mm-hmm.
how to do that. There was then going to these nightclubs in Detroit. That was
Whew.
something different too. It was because in LA, I established a positive reputation
Yeah.
amongst a
Mm-hmm.
lot of bouncers and coolers and doormen and directors of security and whatever, and even if a lot of guys didn't know me, a lot of guys knew of Kane because I put on one of their OGs. I was
Mm-hmm.
best friends with one of their big uncles or something, but going to a new city where I didn't know anybody, it really heightened my senses and helped me really define myself of my mission even more, because now
That's
I
good.
had to go into a club and like meet people, connect with people,
Mm-hmm.
boom, you know what I mean? And here I got, maybe 16, 18 guys in this club, and I'm with these people protecting them, with a flashlight, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my awareness, you know what I mean? I was good, like, and so I learned to connect with all these different other alphas,
Mm-hmm.
and I learned to make whatever team I was around an extension of myself. So we became a team. They
Yeah.
wanted to be
That's
part of
cool.
what I was rolling with. They
Mm-hmm.
wanted to rock with what I was rolling. You know what I mean? So, you know, that Detroit experience taught me that. And then I was like, wow, I don't care where I go. And then a fire marshal in Hollywood taught me this. This is what really set me when I started traveling. He's like, Kane, I really want you to walk in, because I had to do this emergency, my first spot of doing an emergency evacuation, plans, procedures, and all these
Mm-hmm.
things. And I was picking the brain of this fire marshal who was really cool. And he's like, hey, all the lights are off. It's black. You can't see. What do you do? How do you get out? So
Oof.
every time I would walk into a spot,
That's good.
I would walk into it and I would visualize, okay, lights are off. What am I doing from here? Where's the safe zone to get to if I can't get anywhere else? You know what I mean? What's going to be my primary way out? And sometimes as a bodyguard, or a safety advisor or a security consultant when you're on these missions, you get a chance and an opportunity, ideally, to go ahead and do a walkthrough, meet and
Mm-hmm.
greet, talk to the bosses, the owners, the operation directors, and these things. And then you have a plan of attack of where you're getting dropped off at, where you're going to get picked up at, and where you're sitting, and where the bathrooms are, and where this is and that is,
Yeah.
and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you roll into that spot. The vibe's not right. No one likes it. They're like, oh, this, we're out of here. Boom. Now you're going to another spot because someone else just hit them and said, hey, you got to come over here.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And it's like, now you're going somewhere else. They're like, well, now what? You got to
Yep.
pivot. You got to adapt. You got to adapt. You got to
Mm-hmm.
adapt. You got to have the antennas up. I got really good at that. And then so I was really blessed to when Miss Ross came. What an amazing human being she is. She taught me so much. She's like, Kane, you're doing a good job. You're taking care of my son. That's my
Mm-hmm.
baby right there. And
Yeah.
like Miss Ross, I will die for him. I will bleed for him. I will live for him. And so I know. Evan was really cool too. But then they took me on full time after that, and when I would be with Miss Ross, she taught me something different. She's like, Kane, I want you to watch my eyes when you're with me. When I'm on stage, I want you to watch my eyes because I'm watching everything. And
Mm.
like, and I was like, because when you're in a alpha position or a wolf position, you want to find a position where you can see everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to position myself where I could see her eyes. She could see me no matter where she was. She knew I was there. If she glanced at me, then she would give me signals to things. So
Mm-hmm.
by
That's
doing
good.
that, it was so counterintuitive for me because now I had to expand my peripherals to here. So
Mm-hmm.
now I'm looking ahead, but training my peripherals to expand more so that I could still do other things that I need to do. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without her, and she was so aware of everything. I mean, she saw stuff coming way before anybody else would see stuff coming. I mean, like she was just because she grew up in the projects. You know what I mean? She was a different kind of woman. And when my first daughter was about to be born, she was such a sweetheart. She was like, Kane, when that baby comes, I don't care where you're at, what we're doing, you're gonna go. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, it's all right, Miss Ross. We'll figure it out. She's like, no, no, no. You're going to be there. And then I'll never forget when I got the call that the water broke and all that. And I told her, I was like, Miss Ross, the water just broke. She's like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, all right. Well, you all right? She's like, I'm good. Go. See ya. But
Oh.
you bring that baby back to the house so I can hold her, and
Yes.
so then, went, did all that, brought Sequoia Rose back to the house and got to meet her family. And she held Sequoia in her arms when she was like 4 days old.
That's
She
awesome.
was, she was really, really good to me. Our whole family was good to me. All of them.
Mm-hmm.
Rhonda, Tracy, Evan, Ross, just they're all, such good people. You know.
Mm-hmm.
I
That's
was
so
with them for
cool.
a long time. Long time.
That's awesome. So she basically just like took you and your family in as her family.
Yeah, they all did. They treated me and my family like we were family. And I was on call for every one of them. So anytime one of them needed me, I was there, ready.
Mm-hmm.
We could be on, it was hard because we'd be on the way to the beach, go have a beach day, boom, get a text, boom, we got to go back, boom. You know what I mean? And then it made it hard that way, but they were so good to me and my family that like, how could I? And one time, Sequoia was maybe 6 months old and, I went out with, Evan to Manhattan. And before I went, Miss Ross goes, I know you got your baby at the house, but I'm gonna tell you what, if your baby needs anything, you let me know because you're taking care of my baby. And I said, okay. and we were in Manhattan. I got a call from Sequoia's mom saying, I don't know what's going on. Sequoia has this really bad rash. I don't know what to do. And I said, all right, hung up. And I call it Miss Ross and I go, hey, Evan's cool, but hey, I don't know what's going on at home right now with mine. You know what I mean? And like,
Yeah.
and she's like, tell her I'm on my way over there. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
and
That's cool.
she drove to my house, right?
That's
And
awesome.
I didn't live that far from her. I lived right on the hill too. And she drove to my house and was there for like a couple hours with other on the phone with all these other people that could help navigate and figure out what it was. And then she called me the next day and she's like, Kane, I just got to tell you something. And I'm like, what? She's like, I'm really disappointed because when I went over there, I walked in and, you know, Sequoia's mom let me walk in and I turned around and looked and all the shoes were on the doorstep. She didn't tell me to take my shoes off, Kate. You got to tell her the next time anyone comes in your house, doesn't matter who they are, they need to take their shoes off. I mean, she was special, man. She's an amazing human. I was doing a lot of fasting in those days too, and she's like, what kind of fasting you doing? I was like, oh, I'm doing juice fast right now. And like, she's like, I want to try that. So I got her on a juice fast, and she did the juice fast too. Like, that was cool.
That's
But that's
awesome.
Miss Ross. Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so now
Yeah.
you're talking about fasting. I hear you're just coming off of what, a 10-day fast, 9-day fast?
No, I'm on my 10th day right now.
Oh,
No
you're on your
food.
okay, you're still in
Yeah.
it. Okay,
No
tell
food. Yeah,
us about
I'm
that.
still. Uh,
How's
I
that
know,
go?
man.
How's that going for you? I mean, that I know personally I don't do well on no coffee and no food, especially with toddlers. So
Yeah.
that part sucks. But so kudos to you because Anthony's done
Wow.
the fastest. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a lot.
My philosophy is like this. There's so many reasons to fast, and you can look up all this research and really go down to the root and see what you can get from it. But your goal is to read it. I'm 49 years old, and so the older we get, the less stem cells our bodies create, right?
Okay.
So like you want to get to a state of autophagy, right? And you want to ride that wave of autophagy. And by the way, this word autophagy, I just learned how to pronounce. I was talking autotography and all these other things for so long, but
Autophagy?
it's
Yeah.
autophagy. Yeah,
Yep.
Autophagy.
and it
Okay.
took me a long time to learn it, but I got it now. Thank you. You know what I mean? But like, but
Yeah.
you want to ride this wave of autophagy for a long time because autophagy is like picture these hunters looking for cancer cells,
Mm-hmm.
mutated cells, dead
Yep.
cells, harmful cells, all these things, and then they're just consuming all of that and turning it into energy for your body. So
Mm-hmm.
like, if there's like I said, whoever's watching, if you guys whatever you can do it. If you do, from what they say, 1 7-day fast in your whole life, you've reduced your chances of getting cancer by 70%. And that's only one time,
Yep.
and
Woo!
also, so not only do you want to ride the level of autophagy, but while you're reaching autophagy, you're becoming a stem cell factory,
Mm.
and
Wow.
then all of a sudden your whole body's regenerating everything, all of it,
Yeah.
so, um, but fasting is this so and also like there's a lot of I would suggest to anybody to really test yourself. We're here for a limited time.
Mm-hmm.
See how strong you are,
Yeah.
and allow yourself to show you how strong you are, and anybody that has a hard time in life has lots of challenges in their life, lots of obstacles, going through a lot of hardship. Fast.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the
Oh
harder your
yeah.
life is, the easier it is to fast. I got a lot of moving parts in my life. So this 10-day fast was the easiest fast I've ever done in my life. You know what I mean? So, I
Yeah.
mean, it made it so easy. And then
Yep.
also I did, there's one of my brothers, Steve Eckert, he does this, no excuses boot camp type thing. So I did that Friday, Saturday, and the morning of Sunday on day 5, 6, and 7. And we were carrying 40-pound. You guys know who Steve Eckert is.
Yep.
Yeah.
We
Yep.
were carrying 40. Yeah, dude, he's crazy. You know, we
That
were
guy's
doing
a
all these
boss.
high intent, for
Yeah.
sure. We were doing all these high intensity things, carrying 40-pound weights up this crazy mountain, man. He had us going and like, and then we had to carry people up the mountain and alternate, dude. Like, you know, dude. I mean, dude, it was insane. You know, and one of the guys there, one of the elders, you know, he's a beast too. He's like, hey, you got to eat after the first night. I'm like, no, dog, I ain't eating. He's like, no, you thought today was hard? You wait until tomorrow,
Yep.
and like you're not gonna make it through tomorrow. And I said, well, you don't know me, dog. You
Yep.
know what I mean? Like I got a deep well to pull from. I'm making it, and I'm not giving up.
Hey,
You know,
hold
so.
my coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real. And then we did it. We executed, you know, and he sent me a beautiful message after it was all done. He's like, "Holy shit, Kane, you did what I thought couldn't be done." And you know, but
Yes.
fasting is so
That's
crucial to
awesome.
our lives. It's the easiest way to change your palate for your diet.
Hmm.
It's the easiest way for you to remove and resolve any mental blocks that you have.
Hmm.
It's the
Mm.
easiest way to allow your conduit with our creator to remain open, you know. So it's just a faucet of all this stuff coming in, but you have to give, you have to sacrifice in order to receive it, you know. And you know, 10 days was easy. That like normally like people be like, oh, it's 10 days, I get to eat at this time tonight. I'm gonna sleep tonight now, and I'll break it tomorrow on one of
Yes.
my homie, one of my best friends, Tiny. um, he's like, bro, you don't, because he does fast with me too. And he just did a 10-day fast and he broke it on, he's like, you got to break it on an onion. So you onion and you boil it in 10 ounces of water for 15 minutes covered. And then you pour the water out and you drink the tea and then you puree, add a little Celtic sea salt and then eat it like that. And it acclimates your gut health again. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things I can go into whole things with fasting, but I'm on day 10 right now, no food, you know. But to close out the fasting, you know, it's anybody that wants to level up in themselves, you got to level up in yourself before you level up in life, you know. So that's the probably in my opinion the easiest way to do it. You know?
Now, for somebody who hasn't really gotten too deep into the fasting, so like where would you have them start? Would you do a 48-hour fast, a 3-day fast? Okay.
3 days. You need to
Three
do
days.
3 days. You know,
Okay.
anything else is
Doesn't
bullshit.
really do
You know
anything.
what I mean? Well, it's look, anyone that thinks about fasting is you're already ahead of the game on so many levels.
Right.
Anyone that does a 24-hour fast is already ahead of most people.
Yeah.
Anyone that does a 48 hours is already even ahead of more people.
Hmm.
But you really want to commit to a 72 hours because then that's when you really will feel the effects of what it's doing to your body. And then you'll feel so good on day 3 that if
Okay.
you allow that feeling to really feel and
Hmm.
you're in touch with how you feel, then you'll push it another day or maybe another day. You know what I mean? So, you know, commit to
Mm.
at least 3. And then if you can build from that, do that, but at least do 3.
Okay. And how much of that do you think involves your mental focus with it? I know
Oh,
for
I've been
me,
fasting since I was 18 years old. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I wouldn't be able to do most of the stuff I've ever done in my life. But what do you mean for you?
I think how some people try to talk themselves out of like completing a fast, or thinking
Mhm.
that they're incapable of doing it, or oh my gosh, I can't, I'm starving, or if they're around food and or smell food, they're just like, oh my god, it ruins it. Then you get pissed off and you're like, okay, I'm ready. I'm gonna break my fast, or doesn't think that they can complete however long that they want to. So for me, I know because I attempted it 3 times, I believe. The first time I ever did,
You got to start after your cycle. So you got to time it with that stuff. You
okay,
know what I mean?
yeah,
With the
and there was
woman,
so
it's different.
yeah. So I've heard it's different. Fasting's different for women, and that there's a different way for us to fast versus men. So, and I know there's a book out there. I forget the author, but it's called like Fast Like a Girl. I think is the name of the book. But I heard that that plays kind of an important like role, if you will, I guess, into appropriately fasting based off of our cycles and
Yeah.
how it affects us differently. I know the first time I had attempted one was sometime after I had Lainey. We were going into a 3-day fast right before doing 75 hard. And so being postpartum, 2 months like ish postpartum with Lainey, and we were going into potty training with Jackson on top of this fast, on top of going into 75 hard. And I'm like,
That's
no
a lot.
caffeine, no food,
Right.
postpartum. I was like, and then potty training. I'm like, it's a lot of that was like
That's a
mental,
lot.
but that's a lot. That was a lot.
It is a lot.
And I attempted, I think I got 2 days, maybe a little
That's
over two.
good.
Yeah, 2 days, maybe
Yeah,
a
that's
little
good.
over 2 days. But
You should have
I
grace
hadn't,
on yourself.
and I
You have
did,
grace, you
and
know?
I
Yeah.
did. It was definitely hard though because I felt like I let myself down at first, but then I was like, no, you gave it as much as you could, and there was a reason why you stopped. And like, hello, you just had a baby too, so like, let's not do your mental health, you know, damage by
No,
torturing yourself
no.
at this point. So, yeah, no, that was really hard. Um, and then after that, I went 38 hours, I believe. 38 hours. And that was when we did Project 33 Level 2 Extreme with Greg Kimball.
Yep.
And that went well. Like that actually, like I did way better than I thought I would. And I can confirm that getting through that with not just with Anthony, but with another community, especially like other women and other moms that also are on the same level as I am, with like the littles and trying to run a business and doing all the things, was way easier. Like the whole
Yeah.
doing the fasting period was not easy, but doing it with the support of everybody else, because we were all doing it together, made it that much easier. Because they're like,
Yeah, the
okay,
community.
yeah, the community support, it was huge.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, like, I don't know how I would have gotten through it.
Yeah,
That's
you would have
where
been through it,
that
but
yeah, no, I think my
yeah,
my mental state too was in a completely different place in both of those times, of course. So, but I definitely
there's
made a big
there's a lot of
shift.
stages. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
stages, and always have grace with yourself, but like when you're ready, you commit to a three and allow yourself. We got to remember that we're not our mind, you know, and you got to remember to be able to participate as the author behind the mind, so therefore our mind isn't dictating what we need to do, and if you can get to a place where the operating systems of your being and understand that our mind has a purpose and its role,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not the being. And if you can see and be the being that's watching the mind, it allows you to have more of an understanding of what your mind is programmed to do and your ability to understand or overstand or understand that that's not what you need to do, and most cravings and like me, I enjoy all this week. I've been out with my kids. We went to our favorite Italian spot. They got my one daughter. I like this Australian sea bass with the piccata and the pesto and the
Oh
pesto
yeah.
risotto, and my other daughter likes the chicken piccata and the calamari and the shrimp. Man, it was so wonderful just to be smelling it all. And like there
Mm.
was no part of me that wished at this present point. There's been a
Uh-huh.
lot of other fasts where I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I wish I could eat all these things, but this was the first time I became the observer of my mind in it.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a cool way to look at it. A different shift in perspective. Getting to
yeah,
almost, and when you said you really enjoyed like having the smell and being
yeah,
there in the restaurant and smelling the foods and not having that thought of, oh, I wish I could eat right now, but almost turning it into a moment of appreciation
absolutely.
is kind of where my mind went with that. I was like,
Yeah, you couldn't
this is
have
a
said I
moment,
couldn't have said it better.
yeah, a moment of appreciation. Like I'm so grateful. I'm so blessed. Like that, you know.
Yeah,
I'm
we are,
here to
we
get to
are.
enjoy the moments with my daughters at dinner, where they're getting to savor this amazing food at our one of our favorite restaurants. I'm on a fast, but I'm still enjoying my time and I still get to enjoy by the smells
Mm,
because I know that I'll
yeah,
get to enjoy it again.
right.
You know?
Yeah, and that's something too is that it's you we have to remember that it's our choice, and you can break it at any time. Like the only person that's going to judge you really is yourself, if you even do that. So you just like I said, our mind can be. We have to train our mind. That's really what it comes down to.
Agreed.
And the easiest way to train your mind is to fast. I think, in my opinion, of all the different things that I've done, in my life. So
Yeah. Oh, totally. I don't know if he took off or not.
probably got a work
Un-
call maybe.
unless unless he got a call out. So it's most likely going to be us closing out. So sorry he had to
That's
take
cool with
off and
me.
run, but we'll
Yeah,
make all the edits and it's going to sound great when we're done here.
no
Um,
worries.
all right. Well,
You
I'm going to
you ask
close
the
it.
questions, you run the show.
Yeah, no, for sure. Um, Now I know since obviously once you started or starting your family, how was that integrating your family life into your professional life, seeing how you had to constantly travel and
It was hard.
adapt?
It was hard. I mean, my daughter's mom did really well, but it was hard. We ended up going through a divorce at one point, and then at that point, they wanted to be in a different state, and so I walked away from my career and my brand and everything that I worked so hard for just to be around my kids and start over. And my skill set didn't exist in the small town that they wanted to be in. So, it really taught me a lot of humility because I'd be washing dishes. I was the best dishwasher this restaurant ever had and probably ever, to this day, but and I did it good. I enjoyed it too, but people would be coming, hey, where are you from? Like, oh, I came out of Hollywood. What did you do in Hollywood? I was a bodyguard, ran clubs and venues. Ah, sure, here, take this, and go out,
You looked
and then
like this guy.
then I would hear him over there talking and laughing, but it taught me a lot, because I had developed a lot of confidence with all the things I had traveled through and experienced, and God wanted me to learn humility. So, like, uh, I learned with the humility to, what God really taught me was this: when you're up, right, and you have confidence, you need to remember and know the humility that you had when you didn't have anything. So you have to
Mm,
have the humility when you're up, and then when you don't have anything, you have to keep the confidence of when you were up, when you're down. So, like, when I didn't
that's
have
good.
anything and I had to start all over, nothing. I had to really. I realized God wanted me to have confidence still. And then now when I'm up, so now it doesn't matter whether I'm up, down, round, you know what I mean? Like my confidence and humility are my buddies just hanging out with me, and teaching me, you know. So
That's awesome. Uh, your daughters, it's Shasta and Sequoia, right?
yeah, yeah. Shasta's my youngest, Sequoia's my oldest. Two amazing humans.
Oh my gosh. What do they think about your job? How did they
Well, I
have
mean,
what?
I'll tell you what, dude, they used to think I was so cool. You know what I mean? Like, oh, my papa's a bodyguard. He's done this person, that person, another person.
Aw.
And, now I'm not cool anymore. So, and a couple Super Bowls back, when it was in Vegas, my friend and partner for a security company says, Kane calls me up. We're in the car. My daughters are in the car with me. And he goes, hey, Kanye West is doing a listening party on the Wynn property right after the Super Bowl. And it's in a $1 million tent. You're going to have all these
Whoa.
high level people. There's going to be multiple security companies. He's like, but they want us to facilitate his needs and the team of him alone. And I said, nah, I'm good, bro. And he goes, no, Kane, this will be really good for us. And I was like, I don't think it'll be that good for us. You know what I mean? Like, because I want to do it. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot
Yeah.
of work. It's, a lot of work, all the logistics and everything. And I was like, but no worries, bro. And he's like, and I get off the phone with him, and then my girls were like, Papa, you would be so cool if you did that. And I was like, then my heart was just like,
You're
and
like,
so
damn.
I called him back, and I was like, all right, what's the rate? And I was like, oh, all right, and then I negotiated the rate for our guys because I bring the A team, I
Yeah.
bring the Giants, I bring the Ninjas, I bring the SWAT, the Special Enforcement guys.
Yeah.
So. And I was like, well, let me call a few guys and we'll see who's available. It's the night before the Super Bowl. We'll see and a lot of our guys, we don't even need to work. You know what I mean? Now, we don't need to work. So I got lucky, and of all of the 12 guys I called, 11 said yes. And that's the thing too, is like when I'm so thankful for this because I've earned so much love and respect with so many tough humans and alphas in my life that like when I call they answer,
Hmm.
and Kane, what are we doing? I'm like, what are we doing? How you know? Kane, I already know. What's up? You know what I mean? Like,
Whose
and
car
I'm
are we
like,
taking?
yeah, I have a strong. I'm thankful to have the strong team that I have. I mean, we got a strong team, and I told him, and next thing you know, I get off the phone, and obviously all the logistics got to be gone through, and then my daughter's like, "Wow, that's so cool! You're so cool! It's awesome!"
You're like,
And then I
yes,
went,
dad
then I
points.
went, yeah, exactly. And that's why I did it. I did it for them,
That's so awesome.
yeah, and then logistically it was crazy. I mean, we did it. We knocked it out of the park, obviously. It was all these different security teams, so all these alphas posturing, and they're doing the first meeting, and my guys are there. They're all watching me. I'm not even talking. I bumped into one guy from another security team, this big guy, like, boom. He's like, he looked at me like, what the fuck you doing? Like, I'm like, oh, I was like, are you ready? And he was like, oh, I'm always ready. And I was like, oh, okay, good, good, good. And he goes, are you ready? I was like, I'm a little nervous. I've never done this before. I hope I do all right. You know what
Oh,
I mean? He's looking
jeez.
at me like, who are you? What are
Who are
you
you?
doing here? And,
Yeah.
and my team, they watch me like a hawk. So they're all
Hmm.
watching me and like, and then I go bump into another dude, do the same thing. And meanwhile, all the other guys are talking and, discussing their plans and how this is going to work, that's going to work. And then they break apart. I'm already on a mission of self discovery, looking for everything. I got to run. I'm running through this whole thing so I understand everything we're at, and my boy Tiny pulls me to the side. He's like, damn, Ken, you're crazy. I was like, why? He's like, bro, in the whole meeting, you're listening to everybody talk about these perfect plans. And I'm already watching you going, all the plans are perfect, but when all that goes wrong, we're going to fix everything. And that's what we do. We fix everything because good guys create amazing plans. But the best guys, when those plans go sideways, when things happen that need to change, it's the guys that can pivot, adapt, acclimate, make the effective changes in order to facilitate whatever the mission is. And if you're doing it in front of 10,000 people, they don't even know that what just happened, that you had to just do a whole new workaround of everything right in front of them, and no one even knew. And we did that a lot that night, and it was really fun. We did a great job, and then everyone went home safely, which is always the biggest blessing. We like boring nights, although it wasn't
Good.
boring at all. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work, but
Wow. That's cool.
but
Yeah, I
three
know.
seconds I was cool. After that, it was over.
They're like, all right, dad's not cool anymore.
No,
I take it they're in their teenage years, early,
yeah, my
early
oldest
teens
daughter's
now.
four. Yeah, my oldest daughter's 14, and my youngest daughter's 11, but she's
Mm,
already there. But they are the biggest gifts to me. I wouldn't be who I am without them. They made me better, stronger in every aspect of my life. They are my reason. I
that's
call my oldest
incredible.
daughter my heart, and I call my youngest daughter my soul. I can't live without either one of them.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, seeing how like you are able to devote so much to your career, they are the like driving force that helps get you
Oh, for
through
sure.
all of that, and they're your inspiration. They're your reason, your why.
Yeah,
That's so
for sure.
powerful. I love that. Well, Kane, I know we can go on for hours and talk about all the stories,
Yeah,
but
a lot.
we're
There's a lot.
we're gonna tie us off here. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing your life story and the journey that you've been on. It's amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate hearing from you and that you had got to come on and be with us.
Yeah, I love you
Thank
guys a
you.
lot. You guys are amazing humans, and I'm really. It's really cool to watch you guys develop and grow and inspire so many people, and I'm thankful to be part of that with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.